hockey fans, are you ready to brave the Wild? With me, your host, Paladino Joey, or Joey Awajan. Brave the Wild is available on the sportstuff.com, iTunes, Stitcher, and Double Twist. Great to be back on board once again today. Minnesota Wild in a 3-game span go 2-1 as I predicted to a T. That's right, the Wild defeat the Detroit Red Wings, two teams going in a completely different direction, and they even mentioned that on NBC, how, well, back in the, not just a few years ago, you could have said the opposite about these clubs. Like, this team is, a contender for, a championship contender, being Detroit, and the Wild are just this mediocre team, on their way, kind of out of the playoffs this year. That's pretty much where the Wild were a couple of years ago, with, with the Warren Peters of the way. Warren Peters leading the way, guys like that of the world, because all the injuries and such to Koivu and many others, and Mike Yo's first year and Todd Richards last year, blah, blah, blah. It was just not a good situation. Detroit was definitely a contender back then. They'd recently won a cup and all that. You lose to Anaheim. I had a sneaky feeling that was going to be kind of the one the Wild just weren't going to win. I didn't get the vibe the Wild were going to sweep Anaheim this year. They could have easily won the game, but they didn't, unfortunately, because of Mr. Gibson there. And the Wild have a highlight reel game against the Dallas Stars. Detroit game had a little highlight to it, too, but also kind of lowlights as well. Kind of a messy little game. Got some shout-outs to give out today. In fact, I'm going to be shouting out quite a bit, so please bear with me. I got to mention right now, the first one I'm going to open up with Pucknology, the Pucknology podcast. I want to encourage you to check that out. It is a San Jose Sharks podcast. Yes, they're a rival team, but Chris on there, great guy. I went on the show, and it will air when the Wild play the Sharks in a little while here, in a few weeks or so. I think he said it's going to air in a week or two on iTunes. Do check it out. Give it a listen. We had just great chemistry, great conversation. He basically interviewed me about the Wild because they're intrigued. I mean, there's a possibility we might wind up playing each other in the Western Conference Finals. It sounded crazy at one point, but it's getting more and more possible. Of course, the Wild would have to pass the Chicago Blackhawks to get there. And of course, and when I say pass them, I mean defeat them in the postseason, unless we're really lucky and somebody like a St. Louis knocks them off. And then it would be really interesting. Mike Yeo and Bruce Boudreau, Manu Imano, somebody like that. Who knows? But a possibility the San Jose Sharks could come out of that Pacific Division again and face off with the Minnesota Wild around Memorial Weekend, around that time. Late May. Yeah, Western Conference Finals. Remember how that felt? About 13, 14 years ago? 14 years ago already? Wow. But do check out that show. Great guy, Chris, over there in San Jose, California. He's familiar with this area. He lived here for a few years, and we talked about Surly and all that. Wonderful beer and Ale Smith over there in California. Surly, of course, here locally. And for those of you that don't know about that one, Sierra Nevada, Ale Smith, great California beers as well. Yep, he likes to ask people what their favorite beer is, or beers like where they stop before the games or such. And if I were to stop anywhere, I would endorse Tom Reed's. Yes, that might sound kind of basic, but it's a good one. It's very basic because it's really close. But hey, former North Star owns it, and I really liked the food there. I enjoyed it. I enjoyed going there with Mike Holzer, a friend of mine, in the past when we would go there to games together, when his dad would give us tickets because his dad didn't want to go to the game for whatever reason, busy or not feeling good. Was a good time. So, all right, that's how I got introduced to Tom Reed's way back in the early days of the Wild, when Wes Walls was skating for the club, and Marian Gaborik and Antti Laaksonen and all them, Antti Laaksonen and Pavel Bunat. Hopefully, I think I'm still pronouncing your name right. Am I? Was it Bunat or Bunat? I keep now I'm see, you said I pronounced it right. Now I'm wondering what I said last week. MNW players. We're going to talk about that when we get into the second segment as well, because it's more prospect talk and such. We'll get into that at the time. Let's get into the games here. Sorry, I had to get into these shoutouts. Merrick and Pavel Bunat. Merrick as well. Merrick out there. Added him on Facebook. We'll talk about that some more, again, in the second segment. Those guys really do a great job on that site and covering the Wild prospects. Sellout crowd on Sunday, Feb 12th. Afternoon matinee, NBC Sports. This was actually on NBC, the real Channel 11. How cool is that? What a fun little game here, eh? Fun little game. Kyle Granlund netting his 16th goal of the year fairly early on a Detroit goalie that would go on to struggle mightily in this game. Jared Jared Corio, a name, not too familiar with this guy. Haven't really seen him a whole lot, and Detroit's been in the Eastern Conference, and they've been nondescript the past couple of years despite making the playoffs. Henrik Zetterberg is definitely a name we know about, Pavel Bunat, guys like that. Man, we also got well acquainted with Gustov Nuquist. Yeah, Gustov Nuquist. Great. Yeah, that was actually pretty early in the game, too, right around the same time as the goal. We'll talk about that very shortly. It was literally right after the Granlund goal, pretty much. But the Wild getting yelled at by their coach, Bruce Boudreau, somebody please shoot the puck, because there wasn't a whole lot of action going on. The first few minutes of this game were quite boring. And then all of a sudden, boom, Koivu getting the puck on net after Olsen giving it over to Koivu. And Granlund able to finish, just being aggressive, getting it past. Granlund also had another chance in this game to tip it in at the end of the first period. Almost tipped the thing in. Would have been a spectacular play off of Koivu as well. Koivu was just on his game with the passing. This one was more of a rebound, though, from Granlund. Just a great play, though, getting it past Corio. And then Gustav Olsen, getting his first assist in the NHL. He would get his second later on. Very happy for this guy. And the highlight play by Charlie Coyle. Woo. We'll talk about that in a minute. And then, of course, the high-sticking incident with the other Gustov, the other Goose Nyquist of the Detroit Red Wings. A nondescript guy, not really out there, more of a skill player. Him and Jared Spurgeon getting a little tangled up. Spurgeon doing a little bit of a cross-check. Not the worst thing you ever saw. And the Nyquist kind of does a little cheek hunting. And it could have gotten in the eye very easily of Jared Spurgeon. And they just gave him a 4-minute penalty on the play. Luckily, we hurt them where it counted most, as Nino Niederreiter on the power play. A spectacular pass by Mikko Koivu. Just kind of sliding down, hesitating, waiting until he passes the line, past the goaltender. And, I don't know how you can time this and be as accurate as you were on this one. Just a spectacularly timed play. Just waited for that opening, and Koivu nailed it right to Niederreiter, who looked just shocked after the goal. Like, what a spectacular pass by Koivu. 19th goal of the year. 2 power plays for the Wild after, again, Granlund nailing one earlier with Gustav Olsen on the power play. That's how much faith Mr. Boudreau has in Olsen already. He's been looking good. He would make a mistake a few minutes into the second period, on Anthony Mantha's goal. We'll talk about that in a minute, but great play again by Koivu. Only 4 minutes given to Nyquist, though, on the high-sticking penalty, which would lead Boudreau to get really frustrated, and many others. Luckily, it did not get into Spurgeon's eye. They were able to stitch him up and put him back in the game. Thank God. But still, geez, the guy he's such a valuable player. And even if he was the sixth defenseman, seventh defenseman, like a Nate Prosser, you wouldn't want that to happen to the guy. Especially if it's a Nate Prosser. Think about it. A guy just fighting to be in the league, he's working his ass off to be in the league, and then you do that to him and he's done. He could be done. It's very possible. Maybe he'll be okay eventually, but he'd be out for the season, I would think, barring some kind of a miracle. But man, ultimately a 6-game suspension given out to Nyquist. Just excuse making by the NHL and by Nyquist, basically saying he didn't really realize what was going on. And also the cross-check happened. He was just trying to wrap around the guy's ribs. I don't know about that. That was the excuse by Nyquist. And then a 6-game suspension handed out, not a 10-gamer. I would have think at least 10. Some people wanted 20 or 15. But only a 6-game suspension drawn out, lack of reputation, all that. So they end up kind of letting him by with a slap on the wrist. 6 games is still 6 games, but lots of frustration on this one, and very understandable from the Wild organization on this one. Into the second period, though, Detroit would finally get on the board. Again, this is Devin Dubnyk in net, so a little surprising to see 3 goals, but I don't know. It just is what it is. Detroit still got skilled players, and no Thomas Vanek available for this one. He's hurt, and again, another oft-injured kind of guy. Steve Ott is now on Detroit, by the way. He was on St. Louis for a while. He was on Dallas for a while. That was really fun when he was on Dallas. I enjoyed that, actually. Nice little rivalry type of thing. Now he's all the way over in Detroit. Very nondescript. Again, I keep using that word because that's Detroit right now. They're nondescript. You don't really think about them right now. They're kind of like Carolina at this stage. So it is what it is. Over in the other conference and not doing very hot. But Mantha, this was a mistake by Olsen. Kind of just he went out. I don't know what for. He went out to challenge the shooter rather than staying back and block the shot or clear the puck out. Parisi was left chasing Mantha on the play, and Mantha was able to bury the rebound off of Gustov Nuquist. Can you believe that? Nuquist was able to get an assist in this one, along with Xavier Outlet. Can you believe that? Xavier Outlet getting the first assist off of the shot, actually, ultimately off of a Nyquist pass earlier, and Mantha buried it, making it a 2-1 game. A little mistake by Gustav Olsson, rookie mistake there. Luckily, he'd make up for it with a second assist, leading the pass up to Pominville, who would lead it up to Coyle, who would make a spectacular highlight play, just wrapping around the Detroit defender, literally spinning the puck around the guy. I mean, it's the kind of highlight play that you do, when you're trying to show somebody up, when he wasn't necessarily trying to show him up, he's just trying to get around him, so he didn't mean it that way. It's just that it was that good of a play. It was so good. It was a poster type of move, and Coyle ended up ending his goal scoring drought at 17 games, 14th goal of the year. Oh, Charlie, if only you were a little more consistent and you'd end these long droughts. The guy would probably have 23 goals already. He's stuck at 14 at this stage, but at least he got it. Palmer adding yet another assist. The guy has been phenomenal the past few weeks. Just very impressed with Palmer the past 2-3 weeks here. And, of course, very happy to see Gustav Olsson getting his second assist of the game and of his career with the Wild. Awesome. And then literally just moments later, Zetterberg finishing up close. Xavier Ole. I keep calling him Outlet, but it looks like Outlet. It's Xavier Ole and Anthony Mantha. All the same guys again, factoring on the Zetterberg goal. Zach Parise up close and personal, as they like to say. With Jared Corneau, who again would continue to struggle and was kind of left out to dry on this one as well, as Parisi was able to just kind of get the rebound off of a nice Pominville wrister, and he was able to finish that, bury it past Corio, 4-2 game. And just again, moments later, just like last time, just like 30 seconds later, I forgot how to pronounce this one. Athanasio was able to finish off of a Cronwall. It was again Dubnyk kind of left out to dry here. I mean, geez, the Wild just wouldn't clear the puck away. Cronwall was able to get the assist again, just simply getting the puck on net, and Athanasio was able to finish his 14th goal of the season. So you're seeing a lot of 13-14, copyright Dan Cole in this game, if you're an old Dan Cole fan on the KFAN. I'm not a huge fan, but that was funny. It was an old bit he would have. 13s and 14s all around here. Common Man must have loved this. I mean, Mantha, 13, Coyle, 14, Zetterberg, 13. That's 14. It's Parisi, 13 when he would get his second goal later on. Pretty funny. Awesome. Christian Folin, then. This is one that Coyle would want to get back, would really want to have back. Coyle getting his 30th assist on the play. Simply Folin, just kind of a mild little shot. Folin's known for a powerful shot. And he's just kind of flipping the puck on net, and it went right past Coyle. Kind of a screen situation as well, but Christian Folin with his second goal of the year. Good for him. Defensive-minded defenseman, but he does have a nice hard shot, as they like to say. Chris even had a little bit of that in his voice. I don't know if he's just picking it up from watching so much hockey, or I don't know. But I don't know if they really say that in Northern California, but it was kind of funny. Then Zach Parise, again, power play against Detroit. Awesome. Parisi, this was a spectacular play. And Eric Stahl getting a much-needed assist. This guy has just been on a drought of droughts. Yikes, guys. And a big drought for Eric Stahl at this stage. I believe it's a 12-gamer at this point. 28th assist on the season. Good for him. Spurgeon, the guy with the stitches in his cheek at this point, helping out on this one as well. But a awesome redirection by Zach Parisi in midair. Awesome goal. 13th goal of season. Two-goal game for Zach Parise, getting rewarded. You thought he deserved better in previous games like Chicago and others. I mean, he did get a goal against Chicago, but in previous games even before that, the week before, especially against Tampa Bay. Against Tampa Bay, a team who came around in the expansion around the same time in the early 90s. So I got those mixed up for some reason. But Parise getting rewarded for his hard work in this one, getting 2 goals out of it. So very nice to see Zach Parise, obviously a guy who's much better than his statistics would indicate at this stage. Lots of conversation with this game. It was a very, very, very fun game to watch. A shame it was 3 goals given up, but my goodness, we scored 6, so whatever. I can't complain. Extremely entertaining national broadcast for the whole hockey world to see on NBC. That was so much fun. So now we go to Tuesday, February the 14th, a very romantic evening. If you're an Anaheim Ducks fan, I guess, but it would kind of lull you to sleep. I mean, not really, because the Wild put a spectacular effort in this game. But John freaking Gibson, was Jean Sebastian Giguère. And Wild fans from back in the day, those of you that are a little bit older, you got to be almost 30 now. Well, not necessarily. Maybe in your childhood, if you were in your childhood, you're a little kid, and you watched it and remember it, you would be in your 20s at this stage, maybe. 20, like early 20s, I guess. So, it's not that long ago yet. 14 years ago, Jean-Sébastien Giguère and the Ducks shut the Wild out in 3 out of 4 games, sweeping the Wild in the West Finals. Just pray to God we don't have to go through that frickin' bullcrap again. As I talked about with Chris, that could be the one thing that could hurt the Wild in this postseason is running into a hot goalie, because as talented as the Wild are and as skilled as they are, I mean, you run into a hot goalie, you're kind of screwed, and stuff like that happens. The Wild, as good as they are offensively, they are still inconsistent offensively, and that's one thing that does scare me. When you saw Anaheim score early, you thought, okay, we'll be fine. Nice rebound off of Corey Perry's, actually it was Lindholm's shot off of an angle, and Cramarosa, another crazy name there, was able to just bury the rebound. Wild just not prepared, not ready, almost nothing you could do about it. And to think that would be the only goal of the game. I mean, it reminded me of Edgar Martinez against the Twins back in '92. And yes, I remember because that's the way I am. First at bat of the game, home run. Seattle leads 1-0 against Kevin Tapani and the Twins. And that was it. And the Twins would have several chances to score, just like the Minnesota Wild in this one. Several chances to get a run in. Runner on third. Looked like a home run by Brian Harper, caught by Ken Griffey Jr., stuff like that. Remember all those names, some of you old school sports fans? And that was it, though. 1-0. And that's kind of what this game was like. And that's about all I got to say. Wonderful chances off the post by Pominville. Pominville was awesome in this game. And, it was off the post. I mean, he would have beaten Gibson. Gibson was not ready for it. He had Gibson beat. It was past the glove, but it hit the post. And that was the story of the game right there. It really was. I mean, Koivu was awesome in the game as well. Strong defense, strong on the puck the whole night. The Wild peppered John Gibson. My goodness, sounds like an actor, doesn't he? 37 saves by Mr. Gibson. Devin Dubnyk faced only 23 shots. The Wild dominated the puck, but Gibby Gibson was on his game the whole night, and damn it, the Wild just could not finish. So many chances. 4 shots by Zucker, 4 by Suter. Man, even Stahl almost had one. Really, but it just a little more mustard on that shot. It would have been a goal, but damn it, it just did not go in, and the disappointment was in play. Now, speaking of disappointment, it continues for a guy by the name of Mr. Graovac. Tyler Graovac put on waivers because so many ups and downs with the AAA club, the AHL's Iowa Wild. They had to put him on waivers at this stage. They were out of options in that stage, so he was available if somebody wanted him until a couple days, then he could get sent down officially to Iowa. So the Wild's frustration, Boudreaux's anyway, frustration with Graovac hit a point of no return at this stage that we were willing to put him on waivers because we had to. And luckily no one did pick him up. Alex Tuck right back up. Boudreaux expressing frustration with Mr. Alex Tuck. With and I noticed the same thing, just kind of slow out there. Plays in slow motion, like what's going on. And Zach Mitchell also called up. Very nondescript minor league player, but he was here much earlier in the season and got 1 assist, and that's it in multiple games there. About 11 games, Zach Mitchell was on the Wild earlier in the year during Zach Parise's injuries and such, and other players' injuries that took place early in the season. Very frustrating. Parise injured and sick a lot early in the season. And, of course, Eric Halla injured as well. So that's when we were dealing with all that garbage. You had to have guys like Zach Mitchell up here and such. Alex Tuck, though, looks better. Put on that... he's kind of moved around from the fourth line to the top line. Fourth line looks good, though, especially as we get into the Dallas game. Let's move on to the Dallas game. Mitchell and Tuck did play in this game, but the Dallas game was when they're a little more noticed, especially Tuck. Very fast. Alex Tuck, much faster, very aggressive, very impressed. This guy can be very fast. He has some speed. He has some explosiveness out there, and you're seeing it. I don't know if he was a little bit nervous, a little timid, and I don't blame him because the whole game was like so much faster. He's probably like a little shell-shocked coming in, but looked a lot better in this game. Fourth line, pretty awesome, as things again continuing to shuffle around because Graybach's no longer with the Minnesota Wild at this stage. So, I mean, there's still a chance. He's in Iowa. You never know. He may come back up again and may keep his job, but, I mean, all of it, I mean, no assists all season, only 6 goals, and they were just sporadic. They were in and out, here and there, just random. Erik Haula's the fourth line center, and he looks damn good on it. We're going to talk about some highlight plays here. Right at the end of that first period, after the Wild and Dallas Stars exchanged a decent number of shots, Dallas a little bit better than the Wild, and also, by the way, Darcy Kuemper before this bye week here. I don't even know where this came from, but it's come up, obviously, during the collective bargaining agreement. It's like, yeah, that's what it is, a bye week, so we won't have any hockey for another week or so. But I will be able to preview 2 games in the preview, so this one I could talk a little bit longer, and of course we'll talk more prospects in the second segment, and we're going to talk about Luke Kunin. He's kind of the featured prospect of the day. We're going to kind of approach that. Avery Pearson also will be in the next episode of Brave the Wild. Pavel Bunat making some writing some really nice articles about these guys. So yes, and I will post it on the Brave the Wild Facebook page if he allows me to do that, or if he prefers it actually probably to be on mnwplayers. So maybe it'll end up on both. We'll find out. haven't heard from him, so maybe I'll hear from him during the break at this stage over there in the Czech Republic. Pavel, my new buddy over there. A Blades of Steel goal. For those of you in the Nintendo days, the old Nintendo, I'm not talking Super, and I'm sure as hell not talking N64 or anything beyond that. Nintendo, Blades of Steel. This was a Blades of Steel goal by Ryan Suter, where it's just you win the face-off, zing it over, and then shoot. It was like, it was a 1-2-3 tic-tac-toe goal. Spectacular. Koivu wins the face-off, over to Pomandril, immediately over to Suter. Power play goal. 1 second remaining in there. Ryan Suter makes it 1-0 Minnesota. Darcy Kuemper, awesome this entire game, by the way. Just every one of these goals was a highlight. Every one of them. Just awesome. Mikko Koivu comes in off of the penalty. The power play for Dallas had just ended. Koivu comes out of the box, gets the puck, zings it backdoor pass to Jordan Schrader, who continues down towards the net and slides past the goalie. Hesitation. I mean, just waits, hesitates, waits patiently. Erik Haula score. Just boom, just immediate little pass after just waiting for the right time, right place. Erik Haula buries it. Gopher to Gopher. Yes, sir. First round pick Schrader, 2009 to 2010 7th round pick Erik Haula. Gopher stars of the past. Back in the good old days, right, of Gopher hockey. Erik Haula was a member of the 2013 Gophers, who had the number one ranking in all of hockey, and unfortunately got beat by Yale in the first round. A lot of people saw the Wild versus Notre Dame in the championship game in that one, and the Wild or Gophers losing that one, but ultimately, because a lot of people thought Notre Dame might pull it off that year, ended up being Yale, the bottom seed in the entire NCAA tournament. They went all the way, won the damn thing, and then the Gophers were number 1 again the next year without Haula and not with Schrader either. They went all the way with Mike Riley and all of them, and Adam Wilcox and such, and then got creamed by frickin' Union in the championship game after just flying through the whole year. Heartbreaker. All right, let's move on. And Gophers look good again right now after beating Penn State last night. Yes. But Gopher to Gopher. Awesome. And, of course, that's Minnesota men's Gopher hockey. Yes. NCAA hockey. Cody Eakin finishing off the rebound by Antoine Russell. It's just, again, I mean, early in that third period, and it's like, okay, Kuemper gave up 1 goal, and this was not a bad one. This wasn't necessarily like, Dubnyk would have stopped it. Whatever. It was a rebound. The Wild were unable to get the puck out of the zone, and Cody Eakin able to finish for only his 2nd goal of the season. 7 minutes later, after some pretty nice saves by Darcy Kuemper over the course of this third period, as the Stars would threaten a bit, but the Wild's defense and the shot blocking was ready for this one as well. They were ready to help Darcy Kuemper out, despite if he would face 35 shots in the game, stopped 34. Very encouraging to see Kuemper play so well. And then Jared Spurgeon with a highlight play off of a nice Erik Haula pass getting it up towards the net. Spurgeon would the puck would be bouncing all over the place. Spurgeon would gain control and raise it past Kari Lehtinen, and there you go, 8th goal of the season for the guy with the stitches on his face, a tough guy and ready to go, small but tough and so talented, so skilled. He's had so many just beautiful highlight type of goals this year, and this was yet another one. Awesome. Cody Eakins was also similar in terms of he would get the rebound and raise it past Darcy Kemper, where in this case, Jared Spurgeon did it all himself. So more impressive, in my humble opinion, both defensemen for each respective club. Jared Spurgeon with a highlight type of goal. Darcy Kemper would face a couple of very dangerous situations of a Parise turnover along the way and would still stop the puck. Devin Dubnyk, a la Devin Dubnyk, as the Wild have two huge goalies, 6'6" Dubnyk, 6'5" Kemper. They take up all that space and they have the flexibility and the quickness to really block that net, and Darcy Kemper really showed it on this night against the Dallas Stars, and we're very happy with how things took place. This was Thursday, February the 16th, by the way, and the previous one with Anaheim was Valentine's Day. So, the Mike Modano Award for the week, it's kind of tough. It is kind of tough. Parise's like a possibility with the multiple goals, but Erik Haula is awesome all week. Spurgeon is a candidate. Koivu is a candidate. Big week for Mikko Koivu, making some nice passes, really setting guys up, and of course finishing as well. Actually, no, he didn't finish, but almost finishing on multiple occasions. Pominville as well. Great scoring chances. Boy, it's a tough choice. Even Kemper with a strong game. Dubnyk, strong game against Anaheim. I don't know. And of course, Gustov Nuquist fitting in very nicely with the Wild. A lot of people see him as a guy that doesn't look like a rookie anymore. He looked a little bit on that one play against Detroit, but other than that, he's been very good, and the Wild making the right choice, sending Mike Riley back down to Iowa and calling up Olsen, who's a year younger and a lot better, I think. I thought Mike Riley was going to be better than he is, but when you provide no offense, which is what you're known for, and you make so many mistakes, and you're not even good on the puck half the time, just terrible turnovers. And then you bring in Gustaf Olsson, who's already got more assists than you. Yeah, that's right. And way better presence out there. I'm sorry, but Gustaf Olsson for me is the guy. Between Mike Riley and Gustaf Olsson, it's Gustaf Olsson's job to lose at this stage. Unfortunately, once Brodin comes back, then don't know what's going to happen with Olsson. I would love to see him stay on the NHL roster at this point. Folin has done so well that you can't really send him down necessarily, even though he's dropped off from an awesome start to the season after the knee injury. And Prosser's the classic seventh defenseman. He gets scratched most of the time, but he's there for injury replacement or whatever it is in situations. So he's already up here. And, of course, good to practice against this and that. And he's a nice option to change things up a little bit. So there it is. I'm not sure you'd want to keep Olsson in that range. You want him to keep playing. So, man, I think the guy deserves to be in the NHL. So decisions will be made in the offseason along with the current regular season into the postseason. So season. It is what it is. Mike Modano Award is going to go. Boy, oh boy, it is so tough. Jared Spurgeon, Mikko Koivu. Jared Spurgeon and Mikko Koivu, honorable mention to Erik Haula. All three of those guys, awesome all week. Jared Spurgeon and Mikko Koivu are both going to get it. Spurgeon hanging in tough, spectacular play along the way. Not changed at all, despite that crazy, scary situation, the way he was able to go right back out there and still get an assist in that Detroit game, and that awesome goal here against the Dallas Stars. Jared Spurgeon is as valuable as it gets. He was the MVP of last season for me with the Minnesota Wild. Erik Haula strong all week, too. Nice to see him really factoring in the scoring, despite getting pushed down to the fourth line with Coyle moving to the third-line center position. Nice chemistry there with Palmer and Mr. Zach Parise. But, of course, Koivu, what an awesome week. Just great playmaking, great presence out there. Mikko Koivu when winning key faceoffs as well. Awesome. So there it is. I'll wrap up this fairly long segment. Had a lot to say, and I really enjoyed this. So thank you again for listening, keeping up with me, bearing with my craziness as well. We'll be back to talk about the two games and, of course, the prospects and such. Back here on Brave the Wild. Ready for the second segment? We're going to preview 2 games and jump right into some prospect talk. We're going to talk to Pavel Bunat and his buddy Marek Skyba. They made the wonderful Facebook page mnwplayers. Look that up. Join it right away. People have been joining it. That's going to be a very popular page, of course, from Minnesota Wild Hardcore. We're all kind of like linked with them too, in a way. Jim Madil and, of course, Chance Kostek, my brother-in-law, of course, the brother of my brother's wife, basically. Interesting how that works. But, yeah, they help run the Minnesota Wild Hardcore, and then, of course, Pavel Bunat has come out from there, and their buddies there, and they've created the MNW players out of Europe. Marek Skyba and Pavel Bunat get that going, and we're going to get an article. We're going to talk about an article. Luke Kunin will be the feature presentation with the prospects today. Very awesome points in that article. Awesome. Wow. We'll be talking about that right away here after we preview the Nashville and Chicago games. Nashville and Chicago, Saturday, February the 18th. 14 years ago, something happened to me, but I'm here and everything's good to go. So I'll leave it at that. A little health hazard, we'll say, took place that day. God bless. Thank you, Lord, for the healing there. Absolutely. So let's jump on board with this Nashville game. I'm going crazy here. Nashville Predators, Saturday, Feb 18. Oh, goody. Mr. Forsberg, Philip Forsberg, not Peter, Philip Forsberg, Patrick Rinne, and others. Or will it be Soros in that? We'll see. We'll see, indeed. McLeod is out on injured reserve with an undisclosed injury. Very well. Undisclosed injury. PK Subban will be also PK Subban and Ellis, Josie, all these star players. Ryan Johansson leading the way at this stage for the Nashville Preds, the Predators. The series right now, it's a 5-gamer so far. Minnesota leads 2-1. This one is hosted by the Minnesota Wild, so hopefully the Wild can officially clinch the season series with a victory. The Wild won in overtime. The Wild won in overtime on December the 27th. They won 5-2 on December 15th. That was during that winning streak, that impressive month in December, crushing the December swoons of the past for Mike Yeo. Even though there was a January swoon in his final year, Nashville ended up winning on January 22nd. A convincing regulation victory for Nashville. So they went up with 3 points. The Wild have a 6-3 lead in the points department. Nashville 62 points. They are in the wild card position right now, 20 points behind the Minnesota Wild at this point. Holy Toledo. That's pretty awesome. 20 points. I mean, it's only 20 points. Okay, let's not even think about that. Let's not even go. I don't want to talk about anybody catching. Yeah, no. Minnesota Wild 7 points ahead of the Chicago Blackhawks, not only for the division lead, but for the conference lead. Woo! That's unbelievable. Pekka Rinne, when he's on, he's on. He's a very, very good goalie, but on occasion he gets his butt kicked. Kind of like, other goalies in the NHL, right? Carey Price gave up 7 goals this year against the Wild. 7 goals given up by Carey Price. So it happens. Even Devin Dubnyk gave up 3 against Detroit not that long ago, just a week ago. So let's move on. I'm going crazy here. Ryan Johansson leading the way, 40 points. Remember, the Wild tried to get him last year. They tried to pluck him off of the Columbus Blue Jackets. Not going to happen. Nashville just a little more aggressive, and they continue to be aggressive into the offseason. Of course, getting PK Subban, who's doing all right. He's not as good as Weber, though, as Shea Weber. 22 points on the season, plus he's a little crazy, and he's missed 16 games this year. So, well, it is what it is. Philip Forsberg, the third leading goal scorer with 16. Victor Arvidsson, who's been a thorn in the Wild side at times, 18 goals on the year. Only 1 point behind Ryan Johansson with the lead. He's the Mikhail Granlund of the club with 31 assists along the way. Forsberg's kind of the Parisi, I guess you could say. James Neal, 17 goals, 9 assists. More of a third-line talent who can score goals, not really set people up. Mike Ribeiro, a nice veteran center along the way. The Wild should be able to beat this club at home, and I hope we do. We did lose last time we were at home. In fact, we won both games on the road in Nashville. So will the Wild make up for it? This is their final home game against Nashville. The Predators have 3 games at home. The Wild 2 to the Wild's 2 at home at this stage. So I think the Wild can win this game. I think they should win this game. I think they should win both of these games, quite frankly. Nashville and Chicago. I think the Wild will beat Nashville today. I think it'll be a nice little solid 3-2 type of victory for Minnesota. I expect Devin Dubnyk to be in net tonight. And we'll talk about the Chicago game later. But I do expect Devin Dubnyk to be in net for both of these games. And it's good to get... Good thing the Wild did put Boudreau put Kemper out there because he might have missed all the whole week and everything. That's a little too long. And then you bring him in against the Kings or something, and God knows what would happen. He gets crushed. And I would put Kemper against the Kings. He usually does well against them, though that seems to be fading of late. I like the Wild's chances against Nashville. They're definitely the better team. We've played well against them in the last couple of years. I don't expect to see another 4-2 type of game. Patrick Rene was due to shut the Wild down with the way the Wild had been shelling him, particularly that 5-goal game back on December the 15th in Nashville. That was devastating for that club. I expect a 3-2 victory for the Minnesota Wild. Will it go to OT? Very possible. Most likely guy to score in the game is going to be, are you ready? Eric Staal will end his 12-game drought. So there it is. Eric Staal will end his 12-game drought against the Nashville Predators. Today's the day for that to happen. And there you go. Let's move on to the Chicago Blackhawks. The Chicago Blackhawks. Oh, goody. I'm jumping ahead to March accidentally, as we still got a little bit left here as we bounce around. Tuesday, February 21, and then, of course, Los Angeles Kings, which I do think Darcy Kemper will be in net. Yes, he will be in net on that one, and then the Wild will have Dubnyk against Winnipeg the following night, back-to-back to wrap the month of February, pardon me. Devin Dubnyk will be in net for both of these. Minnesota hosts the Chicago Blackhawks. We wrap up the homestand at this stage. Big game. This will be... Don't be surprised to see this on national television, and in fact it is. Seems like Wild Blackhawks is a nationally televised game, no matter what it is. Same old story. Patrick Kane, Jonathan Toews, Corey Crawford. It's all about Corey Crawford when it comes to the Wild and the Chicago Blackhawks. Almost more so than Jonathan Toews and Patrick Kane. Okay, it's all three of them. It really is. It's all three. You don't have Evil Otto there anymore. That was Brandon Saad because he had that wicked little smile. He had that cocky look in his face. Minnesota has acquired 3 points, and Chicago has acquired 2. So a very narrow margin between these clubs so far. The 3-2 victory in Chicago after trailing 2-0. Wild answer with 3 goals on Jan 15. Spectacular night. Everybody loved it. Palmer ending his drought. I think Zach Parise will score again against the Chicago Blackhawks. I just got a feeling with Parise versus the Blackhawks. Don't be surprised to see Patrick Kane net another goal against the Wild, though. Don't be surprised at all. Jonathan Toews has been picking it up of late after he was oft injured early in the season and struggled kind of like Zach Parise has struggled and being oft injured earlier in the year. So many familiar players, so much frustration. You just hate seeing their names because you hate seeing them score on us. Omnistov, again, that's an acquisition, and Panarin in the Brandon Saad trade. The Blackhawks just know what they're doing. As good as Brandon Saad is, I mean, look how much they got back in return. Corey Crawford continues to be outstanding. Scott Darling is an awesome backup goalie for the Blackhawks. Whichever one is in the net, it's going to be a tough score for the Minnesota Wild. Richard Panik is always a pain in the butt. Brent Seabrook, and Duncan Keith is probably the best defenseman in the NHL. Is what it is. I think the Wild can and will win the game at home, and then you hope for the best on March the 12th, where the Blackhawks may even the season series in the win-loss column at that stage. In fact, they actually, you don't want them to win that game. That's all I got to say. Hopefully the Wild can hang on. If the Blackhawks aren't, if the Wild win tonight and the Blackhawks, if the Wild are able to win tonight and not, if the Wild are able to win tonight and not be forced to go to overtime where the Blackhawks would still get a point, the Wild officially win the season series. So there it is. So the Wild have a chance to end the season series tonight, and I feel they will. I think the Wild will win the season series, and then you hope for the best on March the 12th, or hopefully at that stage the Wild can be very much in the driver's seat for the Central Division Championship. Only the second in the history of the franchise. The first for the Central Division, and the Wild won the Northwest back in 2007, only to get beat by the Colorado Avalanche. I couldn't believe that. Oof, so frustrating. But again, it is what it is. Is what it is. Very talented team. We all know that. I'm going again 3-2. 3-2, just like the Nashville game. Sounds boring. It might go to overtime. I think the Nashville one, for some reason, is more likely to go to overtime than the Blackhawks one. I see a 3-2 win for the Minnesota Wild. Zach Parise, more likely guy to score. I just think the Wild will outlast the Blackhawks, and they'll make up for it. I'm actually going to go with 4-2. 4-2 win. I think the Wild have a fairly convincing victory over this club. Kind of like similar to last year when the Wild pounded the Blackhawks. I just get a feeling the Wild are going to really come out to play against Chicago. And it's going to be, you're going to see like 35-plus shots by the Wild. I just have this vibe. They're going to have this feeling, we're going to put you guys behind us. You're going to be behind so far, you're not going to catch up, and then we're going to have home ice advantage should we end up playing in that second round, which the possibility is very strong. All these talented players, Jarmelson, Seabrook, I mean, it just goes on and on, but the Wild also have a lot of talented players, and these names are going to become more and more valid to Blackhawks fans, as the Wild are a legitimate threat now to knock the Blackhawks out of the playoffs and possibly make a run all the way. It does exist. So there it is. 4-2 victory for the Wild. Most likely guy to score is Zach Parise. So let's get to our feature presentation when it comes to the prospects, and that's Luke Kunin. An article written by Pavel Bunat. I hope I'm saying it right. Please let me know. For Mr. Pavel there, young Mr. Pavel, he says Luke Kunin as the top prospect for the Wild. And also to note, Kunin added 2 more assists last night for the Wisconsin Badgers over the Michigan Wolverines. Both of the Michigans have been struggling mightily. So, again, letting you know that. 15th overall pick, 2016 draft. Pavel, very impressed with this young man. 31 points already in only 26 games, 19 goals, 12 assists, adding 2 assists last night against Michigan. Michigan and Michigan State both struggling mightily. But Pavel adds some interesting points here. Really likes the guy's slap shot and wrister, all that. And he does see Kunin as a possible captain for the Minnesota Wild in the future. He sees how Koivu's contract will end in 2018, and then maybe sign for another couple years, and at that stage, a couple more years with Koivu, that is, 2 or 3 more years, and the C will be available. He sees Kunin possibly becoming the captain of the Minnesota Wild by the time he's 24 years old, about 5 years from now. Very, very interesting. He sees that ideal age to start a career as a super captain. A super captain, huh? Yep, I mean, the Wild have captains all over the place. I mean, Belpedio is a captain with Miami University. Jason Tomanville was a captain in his past. Suter has generally been an assistant. Shea Weber was the captain. He was our alternate, not assistant. Parise, obviously, has been a captain. So it's crazy. But yeah, Kunin could be that guy. Kaprizov is a captain of his team over there. He was the captain of the Russian World Junior team. I mean, that's impressive. Very impressive prospects again, and that's why why Chuck Fletcher is looked on as a very good general manager. After a couple years ago, just even into end of last year, people were getting really concerned, really frustrated when you saw guys like Granlund struggling, Niederreiter kind of plateauing, Coyle plateauing, guys like that, Brodin dropping off, Kemper not being really good. Now, I mean, you're starting to see something here, and a lot of these prospects really starting to pick up. As the covers looked we're starting to get awfully bare again, or so we thought, where guys like Lucia were not doing so good in college and such. And now here we go. I mean, Kunin, Alex Tuck was doing all right. He was like the only guy. And now look at this. Kaprizov is blown up, and Belpedio is getting better. It just goes on and on. Susie Susie and Avery Peterson over there. Carson Susie and Adrian Peterson, Avery Peterson. Pretty awesome. But we continue here with some of the statistics and such, which get very interesting here from Pavel Bunat. He says, I'll just say Pavel. I don't need to say the whole name all the time. I'd be driving him crazy. So I apologize for, just say Pavel. He says, the most important thing is his productivity and scoring ability. Right now in the 2016-17 season, he has 29 points in 25 games. Yep, like I was saying, 19 goals, which is absolutely outstanding. 19-year-old kid, and he's a sophomore at 19. That's very, very interesting when you think about that. Again, and he added the 2 more assists, which put him at 29 points. Yep, just crazy. 2 more assists, so he's finally getting some assists as well, because he mostly was scoring goals early on. And he was talking about trying to compare him to former NCAA players who became NHL players. He says in this season, Kunin is scoring .76 goals per game. Yep. And Parise in his sophomore year with North Dakota, the North Dakota Fighting Sioux, now Fighting Hawks, was .62 goals per 1 game. So very interesting there. He says it's impressive. He doesn't want to say Kunin's going to be better than Zach, but it is impressive. And he says Johnny Gaudreau, who is of the Calgary Flames at this stage, his second NCAA season, .48. Eric Hall, .47. Thomas Vanek, .68, who was great with the Gophers, helped them win the national championship as a freshman, believe it or not. That was pretty impressive. And then his second year, he was good again. He was very good and was a top pick in the draft, top 5 pick, and went on to be with the Buffalo Sabres for a while. Van Remmersdyk, .47. Danny Healy of the Wisconsin Badgers, and later on with the Atlanta Thrashers and others, Ottawa Senators, Sharks, and Minnesota Wild for a short time there. .62 goals per one game. And as great as Danny Healy was for the Badgers as well. So Healy and Kunin, both Badgers, along the way. He says, he wraps up the thoughts with, generally speaking, Kunin is playing absolutely outstanding in his second NCAA season. He is better. He is better than many of the big names that were playing in the same league before him. Yep. So back in the college days with them in their sophomore year, basically. So when we say second year, it's like sophomore year in college. Impressive thoughts that his goals per game average is higher than a lot of big names. So hope it continues. We've seen a lot of college players be great, and then they drop off. But I think Kunin, a lot of people see this is legitimate, though, with Kunin. This isn't like a pie in the sky, flash in a pan type of thing, like maybe Sam Anas was. But even Sam Anas is doing all right for the Iowa Wild, I have to say. He's coming around. It takes like a year or so for some of those college players to adjust to the AHL. You think of the AHL versus NHL, and yes, there's a significant drop-off, but there is a significant upgrade from college to the AHL. There is a very minor upgrade from college to the ECHL. So, ECHL, a lot of guys do the same thing in the ECHL they were doing in college. Now, Ontario League, obviously, I think is lower than college, and that's why I would not mind seeing a guy I really like, Dmitry Sokolov, at least play 1 year with a Colorado college, somebody like that, somebody not in the Big Ten, unless it's the Gophers. That would be nice. Let's look at Dmitry Sokolov now. The Ontario League's finest, Ontario Hockey League, Sudbury Wolves, 60 points on the season, 39 goals in those 50 games, 21 assists added on board. Oh my God. That's too bad the Sudbury Wolves are struggling so much. He's a -22. They have a terrible record, and I wouldn't be surprised, Dmitry, a little bit of a selfish game at this stage. But again, he's 18 years old, and it's kind of a man among boys right now. Despite the fact he's 18, it's not like he's 23 years old or anything. And that's also what's exciting. This needs to be his last year in Ontario Hockey League. It's a great little minor league. It's basically a senior. It's a major junior is basically what it is. It's a top junior league, the Ontario Hockey League and everything. But time to move to college or at least the ECHL. AHL would be a tough adjustment, I think, but you never know. Maybe he really is that good. And a lot of people saw him as a first-round talent. There he is, a 7th round. So for those of you new to the show, you're going to hear my continued fandom of Dmitry Sokolov. Could be the sleeper of the 2016 draft, along with another nice player, Kunin, for the Wild at 15. Not a sleeper. Lots of talented players came out of that draft, like Kiefer Bellows and others. It's going to be fun. Going to be fun to keep up with. Jordan Greenway adding a goal and an assist the past week here for Boston University. He's now at 8 goals, 18 assists. He is tied. See, he's also in his second year, his sophomore year with Boston University, just like Luke Kunin. Same, not the same draft, but was same. He is he is in the same collegiate year, sophomore year. 26 points in 29 games versus 39 games last year. So continued development with Jordan Greenway. Everybody loves him. He's got a little bit of captain in him as well someday, someplace. Just a beast out there. That's usually the word everyone uses. Jack Sedek still at, I believe, 7 points on the season. Again, stay-at-home kind of physical defenseman for the Minnesota Golden Gophers, who are 5th in the country right now. And after beating Penn State 6-3 last night, they do it again tonight. Man, oh man, top 4 and top seed in the NCAA tournament in March if they continue that going. Luis Belpedio playing for a Miami, Ohio team, not playing as well of late. Only 2 goals for that club the other night, and Belpedio not factoring in that. He is the captain of that club. They're just not that good, unfortunately. He's probably the best player on that team. In fact, I would say he is. In his junior year, again, possible to see Luis Belpedio on the AHL's Iowa Wild next year. And I would not be disappointed. In fact, he's a 2014 draft, so get him on over. He's an Alex Tuch's draft, so time to hop on over to the Minnesota Wild. Sam Warning added an assist at one point last week, a couple assists last week. Since then, he's at 38 points in the ECHL right now. He's the only notable guy, I would say, on the Quad City Mallards at this stage. Maybe Sokolov, I don't know. But watch him tear that league to shreds for a couple months and move up to the EAHL. Could be exactly what's going to happen, but very kind of a nondescript week, though, for both the ECHL Quad City Mallards and the Iowa Wild. Only one goal in each game, and they're both scored by Timo Pulkkinen. The goal last night, unassisted, so only Timo Pulkkinen really pretty much leading the way for Iowa. He's definitely the AHL Player of the Week for the Minnesota Wild, the Iowa Wild's club, of course, or excuse me, the Iowa Wild are the Minnesota AHL team. So pretty much Timo Pulkkinen, that's about it. Kind of disappointing week for them. Only one goal each, and one of them was a 4-1 loss. Not good to the San Diego Seagulls. Ouch. That hurts. They got their butts kicked. So after playing well, now they're kind of running and hitting the wall again, unfortunately. Hopefully, Iowa Wild can come out of the little funk that's starting, as they're just not scoring all of a sudden. Starting to remind me of Minnesota Wild earlier in the season. They lost 2-1 to the Ontario Reign just recently, last night. Timo Pulkkinen with just an unassisted goal. Bummer. Is what it is. So that's pretty much it when it comes to the prospects, I would have to say. I wanted to look at it, and I'm messing myself up here. Here we go. Yeah, Pulkkinen now, 34 points on the season. He's way ahead of everybody else, especially with Tuck getting called up and such. Mario Lucia still stuck at 22 points. Olsen's up here. Sam Anas, 20 points on the year. Again, he's a guy who had to adjust a bit. Zach Mitchell's up with the Wild. I don't know. Oh, goody. Zach Mitchell, he isn't doing much at the AHL level. Yet we call him up instead of, say, a Sam Anas or something. But I don't know. I don't think Sam Anas is ready. One of these days, maybe call up Mario Lucia. And I wouldn't be surprised if he's maybe the next one. He's maybe the next one. Say if the Wild get frustrated with the unproductivity of Zach Mitchell, maybe the Wild do give Mario Lucia a shot. At least a couple games here. See what he can do at the NHL level. How he keeps up with it and such. That would be my recommendation at this stage. But it doesn't necessarily mean they're going to listen to me. Hope you enjoyed this show. Please tell your friends about it if you could. Please do join the Facebook page, facebook.com/Brave the Wild, facebook.com/Brave the Wild. At Brave the Wild is the Twitter account for this. And again, like I mentioned, mnwplayers on Facebook. Join Pavel and Marek's page. Marek Skyba, absolutely cool guys, great information, fun conversation. They love the prospects and they love the NHL players as well. They keep up. Their passion is really, really with this team and with the system as well of the Minnesota Wild. So I want to thank all of you very much for your inclusion with this show. I want to thank those of you that do listen. Please, again, tell your friends if you could. Please write a positive rating on iTunes or Stitcher. I would give a big shout out to you and thank you on air if you could kindly do that. I would appreciate it so much. The show needs the positive ratings just to encourage other listeners about the show. I mean, this show needs to get out there a little more. It's kind of been underexposed for many years, many years. So it was really cool to get on the Pucknology podcast out there. Really cool San Jose Sharks show. A very ambitious deal going on there with 12 different people involved with it, making the videos. They actually record after every game. Can you believe that? Different guys and such. Chris, more of the producer type, but he's also a very capable host. Awesome host as well. He's been on, he's got a good radio voice, hockey knowledge, outstanding, and just an all-around great guy. So encourage you to also check that out. Please subscribe to it. And I'll probably be on there again, and you'll probably hear Chris's voice on here, particularly if Minnesota and San Jose face off in those Western Conference Finals. You'll be hearing Chris's voice on this show, and it's going to be a lot of fun. We're gonna have a friendly little rivalry between each other if it gets to it. But it's nice to know I have some San Jose Sharks friends out there now, as they've been following the Twitter account. I met him off of Twitter. He gave me a direct message on Twitter there, and then the Pucknology podcast ended up following later on after I followed them. They pretty much immediately followed back, and some of the other followers. Very cool. And then Drew Bunting also. I think he listens to this show. I'm not sure. He's a friend of Sebastian Ball's. Lives out there in Northern Cal. He's a San Jose Sharks fan. So I'm getting a little bit partial to the Sharks as kind of a friendly relationship with San Jose Sharks fans out there. So why not? Why not? They're not a division rival. We haven't had a horrible, mean series with them yet where people are getting hurt and all that, like it was with Vancouver Canucks. But it's always fun to be friends with other fan bases. We don't need to hate each other. It's fun, especially, again, if you're not a division rival. It makes it a little bit easier. So thanks again for all that. I mean, I've always liked the Flames, too. I've been partial to them. I had a couple of Flames friends out there. They're a little more indirect, though. I didn't really hear from them much. But they're still hanging out there. Some of them listen to the show, I do believe. Again, thank you all again for that, for listening and supporting the show. We'll talk to you next week. Hopefully the Wild can come out of this one 2-0.